would you trade the 2 championships we won in 17 and 18 for the one we lost in 16 when we won 73 games? Both said they would not trade it. They would take
I do think the 73-win team coming back with Clay at OKC and then being up 3-1 and beating the shit out of LeBron, they were on track to be one of the greatest teams of all time. And it was more impressive than anything, because I saw another quote that he said, and he's not right, or he's not wrong, that he's like, I don't care what anyone says. In 2000, whatever, Kevin Durant's first year, he's like, I think we're the best team of all time. They literally, if they were healthy, Kevin Durant, Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, Draymond Green, Andre Iguodala were all playing in the game. They could not lose if they wanted to win. I'm sure they blew, I think they won 67 games that year. I bet there were some games where they didn't give a fuck. They went 16-1 in the playoffs. They were an unbeatable team. I bet in the history of the league, I know Michael won them all, but like I lived through the Michael era. There were some close games. Unbeatable. That team, it was unfair, which we've all acknowledged. Everyone agrees. The 73-win team was very organic, right? It was just all their own guys, all drafted. They won 73. They eclipsed a number that no one thought would ever be eclipsed. And then they were 2 wins away. I guess 1 win away, right? 3-1 from being, it would have been the greatest season of all time. And it was just like so pure.
There's a difference between the greatest team and the greatest season, right? It would have been the greatest season of all time, even though the next year that team with KD was a better team than the 73-win team.
For sure.
Right? That KD team would have beat the 73-win team. Like, I think that KD team beats Jordan's best teams.
I do too.
Because their second and third, their second best player is just so much. All due respect, Scotty. Scotty was fantastic. I mean, I don't.
Who does Scotty cover, right? Because you put Michael on Steph, and you put Scotty on who?
On KD, yeah.
Well, then so Clay's cooking. Ron Harper.
So,
actually that game might be a little closer. Rodman, Draymond.
Yeah, I think it's good. Don't get me wrong.
96 Bulls be a motherfucker.
Here's the other thing: you change history and you win the championship in 73. Do you ever get KD?
Let's just assume you do for this argument.
Okay. I would not trade. I think volume of championships. I also think the way they lost the championship in some ways makes it harder for the 73-win team. In other ways makes it easier, right? It was such a ridiculous way to lose. Draymond's dropping his nuts or kicking up at the nuts after LeBron stepped over him and getting suspended, which was it's still insane that he got suspended for that. And then losing the championship because of that. I saw, YouTube suggested some video to me the other day that was like this guy who I don't even know his name. I never heard of him, but he's like a music producer for some of the biggest musical acts ever, right? I guess he's like produced some of the biggest songs you ever heard, Taylor Swift and
Rick
David
Rubin
Guetta and all this kind of stuff. And one of the things he said was, I think it's important when you're making a song not to overproduce it and make it too perfect. Like the imperfections, not mistakes necessarily, but if you make it too perfect, it's not even human anymore. It's not relatable anymore. And that applies to all kinds of things, right? It applies to people. Like a person who makes no mistakes is not a relatable person, right? It's why some people can't figure out, like, why do people root for Tiger? Because he just is this nonstop redemption story. Even if it's all self-inflicted, it's kind of whacked, right? But it's part of what makes a good, like, don't overproduce a song. And I would say part of what makes the 73-win team such an incredible story is that they didn't win the championship. But again, they didn't win because they weren't good enough. They won because, and I'm going to paraphrase here, we could debate this, they got screwed or they screwed themselves or however you want to say it. And to me, it kind of adds some lore to what that team was, as opposed to just an open and shut case. That's the greatest season ever. It would have ended the argument, and the argument's fun to have.
Well, yeah, I mean, to me, it's added to the LeBron's legacy and their legacy, the whole thing. Like, part of Michael is like, there's no disputing. Like, yeah, he was 6'6". Like, he got there, he was winning.
Yeah.
Like, a part of Tiger, someone DM'd me the other day. They're like, what if he never gets hurt? Do you think he would have dominated, like, as of now? Like, would he still be a top player? I'm like, if Tiger never really would have got injured, I mean, how many majors do you think the guy ends up winning?
I think, yes, he would have been dominating this whole time.
And obviously, maybe not always the peak of like 2 majors a year, but he's winning every year, racking off even in his 40s, he would have racked off probably a couple major. How many majors do you think Tiger would have right now if he had just?
What does he have?
Beside
14? How many does he have right now?
The 19 was when he won the Masters. That was his 15th.
15.
But he hadn't won one from 08 to 19.
Yeah. So I think
does he have 24?
He'd be. So 11 years he missed, right? Or 10 years
winning
between
a major.
How many years between majors? 11.
08 Torrey Pines to 19, so a long time.
Okay. So let's say, I mean, we could do that. We could look and see. I mean, he's averaging I'm guessing he's averaging just under a major a year.
Well, I mean, technically he's been on tour since '96, but he missed some years. You know, it's his career part of. But
I would say, from a conservative standpoint, let's take 11 years and divide it by 2, and then go down and call it 5. Let's say he wins 5. Let's say he wins a major every other year, while like at peak height, which I think we're under. I'm just being conservative. I'd say conservatively.
He had several years where he won multiple majors a year in his prime.
I'm saying he doesn't win one every year. He wins one every other year. And then instead of dividing 11 in half, like I think conservatively he's at 20. Conservatively he's at 20. So yeah, 22, 23, 24 is not out of the realm.
But part of what makes it so fascinating is that like you have the argument, right? Like that is part of the deal. Like there is no argument with Michael. It's like, goddamn, that was fucking dominant. You know, I mean, even Tom Brady, like, what's there even to argue? Like, he's kind of become unarguable. Like, you can't go, if we're at 15-15 last night and dude comes up and just wants to argue about Tom Brady, like, what's he arguing? Yeah. Right? You have nothing to say. Because you'd be like, well, Deflategate. Yeah, and then he came back and won the Super Bowl that fucking 2 weeks later with balls. And then the next year he came back after he got suspended. I had forgotten this, but in that little fucking book I'm listening to that you already powered through, I'm still got like 20% left. They were like, he came back that the season which he played 12 games had one of his best seasons ever. He dominated. And clearly they were checking the balls that year, right?
Yeah.
So it's like there's just nothing to argue about the guy. He's an unarguable, and I think that's what makes it fun of like most players, Steph or like even LeBron, like they have holes. Roethlisberger, like the majority of players are not Michael or Brady. Even Tiger, who is their level, has way more holes than those guys because of all this weird shit that's happened off the golf course. And to me, what makes the Warriors such a polarizing story is like the craziness of them. I'd even say that Kevin leaving them has like taken it to another, you know, just makes them even more intriguing, right? Because if Kevin would have stayed, like if Kevin was on this team right now, they'd probably have won 68 games. It wouldn't even be fair.
2 things. 1, make no mistake, the best story in the NBA's postseason this year would be if the Warriors make a championship run. That's by far the best thing that the NBA could have in its postseason, right? You agree with that?
Say that again.
The best thing that could happen to the NBA's postseason ratings is the Warriors making a run. That is by far the best story that they could have.
Yes.
Okay. 2, unrelated to that. I think I was thinking about this watching that Steph and Draymond, just watching them debate it. If they don't win 73 games that year, championship or no championship, even if they win the championship, like let's say they win 67 games and win the championship that year and get KD. I think the hypothetical that we got robbed of was because, like you said, because they won 73 and because that next year that team was so good, they were just on cruise control the whole year, kicking everybody's ass, but they won 67. If they win 67 games the year before Kevin gets there and then Kevin gets there, how many games do they win? Because what would have happened was they would have tried to beat the Bulls' 72-win record that year with Kevin. Yeah. And they were a better team than they were the year before. So would they have won could they have won 75 games that year with Kevin if they had just gone all out?
It does feel like 73 is
you just get there and then you shut it down.
But I don't. Do you think it's even humanly possible? Even the greatest.
I mean, it would have been really hard. And I do think there's a rest element that comes into play. You just get to 73 and then you kind of dial it back, right?
I don't think we ever see 70 again, right?
No, I don't think so either. I mean, no one's playing games. Like 4 guys played 82 games this year. But I think to me, that's the great hypothetical. It's like if the previous year they hadn't won 73, then they do go for it the next year with Kevin. And that team wins 73 and that team wins the championship. And then there's no debate. the greatest team ever, the greatest season ever, the greatest team ever is still a debate.